So first things first, the Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Responsibility. Rule 7.2E requires the following language in all attorney communications. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. Let me be very specific about that. So my name's Harry Steele. This is my friend Paul Rip. We have Rains Rushing on the phone with us from Texas. And I guess the best place to start is with our relationship, Paul. You were running a consumer advocacy group out of Fairhope, and you have a blog, several blogs, and at some point you believe that you were defamed in print by the Fairhope Times.
Correct.
And so I became your attorney, and we sued them, and we won a landslide verdict of $500, which was kind of a victory in itself because we didn't have any specific damages. I mean, we couldn't point to anything where we could say Paul Rip lost out on all this business because somebody said something ugly about him.
Correct. And it didn't deem me totally crazy.
Right. Didn't deem me crazy or a Marine Scout sniper, whatever the allegation was, something crazy. Shell shocked, I think was the term you weren't.
Brain damage.
Brain damage. And so they had to print a retraction. And so since then, you and I have been pretty much in constant communication. I knew that you were thinking about doing a podcast, which was the next natural evolution for the Rip Report and Baldwin County Legal. And because of the I-10 bridge debacle, I kind of stepped on the gas and threw this together. So if everybody will bear with us, we had a little technical difficulty getting on YouTube, and hopefully that'll be the first and only hiccup in our podcast.
And it will get better.
And let's hope surely it will get better. Anyway, I did want to talk a little bit about that because the next time we go to the polls, I believe it's November 2020, we will vote here in Baldwin County on the establishment of another road, bridge, and toll authority just for Baldwin County, specifically to complete the $200 million link between I-10, where Buc-ee's is now, and I-65 northeast of the mega site, the Baldwin County mega site. So we will revisit that in a future episode. So back to me. I'm an Eagle Scout. I hope that we do a future episode on the post-mortem on my beloved organization. But I've tried throughout my life to live by those principles. And I had some really good adult leaders. And quite frankly, it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. And that leads me to how we know the man on the telephone, Mr. Rushing, and I worked together in the Florida Keys. What year was that, Rains?
1996, I believe.
And so I ran their little Keys Adventure program. So I was there at base, and Rains was one of the boat captains. And believe me, Jimmy Buffett and I were the only two people from the Gulf Coast who were in the Florida Keys in 1996 until Rains got there. It was full of Yankees. So anyway, we've been friends since then. Rains is an AP award-winning journalist, which means, what do you do now, Rains?
Well, I'm putting all of my 36 combined Associated Press awards, a Pulitzer nomination, and a number of different editing awards from the Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi Managing Editors Association. And those look great on my office wall when I'm at work as a bartender.
Right. There are no journalism jobs left in America. So that's why you're tuning in to Harry and Paul and Rains.
That's right.
Via telephone. So a little bit more about my background. I was have an undergraduate degree in public administration, a master's degree in public administration. And so I've spent the first 15 years of my adult life in being a economic developer, county manager, city planner. You fill in the gaps there. And all this happened to me when I was in my 20s. So I was a fairly hot commodity for a while there. So I would like to say that I found that profession to be obviously I went into it very naive. I assumed that everyone there had the best interest of all the people at heart. And of course, I was sorely disappointed. So at some point in my life, I made a decision that I was going to change careers, and there were several attorneys that I got to know because for some reason, all the organizations that I was involved with were constantly engaged in litigation. And so then I got into this profession and found out that in some cases, not all the time, but in some cases, that it was no better than politics in Conecuh County. I think this podcast is going to be a good platform for people to come talk about what's happened to them in the court system. Paul and I are not going to talk about cases on our own. We're going to interview people. We are very, if you'll circle back to the beginning of the podcast, we're very well aware of the slander and libel laws in Alabama, and we intend to color within the lines. I guess that's the best way to say that. So guys, let's get down to business. Our topic today, Paul.
Well, the topic's going to be the sewer. But before we get into that, I hope everybody will follow backstory. We got 14 municipalities in Baldwin County. Something's going wrong in your town. We hope that you'll give us a call. The RIP report started originally about, go ahead.
No, talking to the mic, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The RIP report started originally probably about 10 years ago, 12 years ago in Fairhope. And the thing that came to light was the obvious corruption, municipal corruption. That's what led me into it. At first, I was handing out nothing but flyers in town and trying to get people to engage themselves. Then as I got a little bit more computer literate, we started the RIP report. That's on Facebook. That's also linked to Baldwin County Legal Eagle, which is another Facebook account. And then you have the ripreport.com, which is an email account. And these are printed 2 times a week, Wednesday and on Friday, Wonderful Wednesday and Freaky Friday. Our main focus with the RIP report is a consumer association. We represent the consumer. We try to specialize in political corruption, which there's plenty of in our area. As far as we're concerned, the RIP report, we care less whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat. If you're an elected official and you're using that official capacity for your own benefit, then we plan on using the RIP report to expose that. A little bit of history. When we first started this, we went by protocol of making complaints in Alabama. We wrote the Alabama Ethics Commission, filed many different complaints with them, the judiciary, the Bar Association, even the Attorney General. All to no avail. However, what did happen was the RIP report took off with public opinion and public participation. And that's what we're encouraging you to do. If you hear something we're talking about that you can add to, please let us know. We're going to cover a lot of different subjects. So we want to hear from you.
So let's get started on the sewer, guys.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess we can start with me because I worked for the city of Gulf Shores, 97 to 2001. I remember Mr. Burke, the man who owns Baldwin County Sewer Service. He was a developer. I guess at that point he had bought Mr. Bass out at some period in time. And, he was the only game in town. If you wanted to develop a subdivision that wasn't inside the city limits and didn't have access to public sewer, well, then you had to work out a deal with Mr. Burke. When I left here, he was certainly not the biggest developer or the most powerful person in Baldwin County. When I came back in 2011, his attorney was the county's attorney, and also his registered lobbyist. And the initial meeting in 2010 that I like to refer to as the Red Wedding county commission meeting, because everybody I knew got fired. Anyway, as far as I can tell, they took the savings from firing, I don't know what percentage, 15%, 20% of county staff that they said was mandated by the people for smaller government. And they moved it over to debt service, and they borrowed $35 million to buy this mega site. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. Since 2010, we have had, at one point, I know we only had one person with a planning degree working for Baldwin County, the largest, the fastest growing county in the state of Alabama. And there was actually an article on AL.com today about how many people move per week to Baldwin County. And I want to say it was something crazy, like 300 people. 100 people. Thanks for keeping me straight, Paul. So anyway, after getting rid of almost all of the planning staff except for one person, they then moved to set fire to the comprehensive plan that the county spent $300,000 in 5 years developing, essentially going back to the 1980 subdivision regulations. And, there are a lot of companies that use the public rights of way who have franchise agreements with the county. If you're here in Baldwin County and you turn on the public access television, they actually have to broadcast the county commission meetings as part of their franchise agreement. So why no franchise agreement? Why no engineering specs? Why no required as-builts? There are just a lot of whys about why Mr. Burke gets to use the county right-of-ways with zero oversight or restrictions. At least that's where I'm coming from the public manager perspective.
My position is this: there probably couldn't be a more consumer issue than the sewer. It's fragmented throughout the whole community. Throughout the whole county, and these private sewer companies have no regulation whatsoever. They wanted to go out of business tomorrow, and they wanted to shut it down. There could be 20,000 people without sewer.
Right. And so typically if you're in the city of fill in the blank, let's just use Bay Minette as an example. When you go pay your tap fee, you end up paying like $3,500. Now you're not actually paying $3,500 for the meter or the tap or whatever. You're paying an impact fee. And the presumption is that utility is going to put that money away for a rainy day, correct? Or reinvest in their infrastructure, because they're not there to make a profit. Now, right now, it's very profitable to be in the sewer business. I'm pretty sure Baldwin County Sewer Service is an LLC. Let's fact check that. And so one day when it's no longer profitable, they could just walk away, and the county doesn't even know what is in their right of way, what they've placed there, where it is, what kind of pumps they spec on their lift stations. As far as I know, the only time they ever have any governmental oversight is when they discharge effluent. Other than that, I don't know of any situation where they would fall under any regulation whatsoever.
Well, if you want to have a little bit more insight into the sewer thing and the problems that exist, this is a free plug for Lagniappe. I can assure you they're not paying us to do this. But in the Lagniappe edition, August 21 to August 27, there's an excellent article called Straw Man. Anybody that's lived in Baldwin County for 20 years or better surely should read this. This is a very, very good article. It's followed up the week after with, I think, the title of Split Decision, which again opens up yet another lawsuit that we were even unaware of until the straw man article came out. So that being said, I hope that you'll do a little research yourselves and you can go on the RIP report and pick up that article, or you can get it in the Lanyap, and please try to follow up with their articles.
So what? Let's take a minute and are you queued up over there? Yes. Okay. We've got a little audio from the Glen Lakes Homeowners Association president, and I'll just let you hear what he has to say real quick. Go for it.
We're good. My name's Richard Dayton. I live at 9515 Lakeview Drive in Foley. We're a neighborhood in the Glen Lakes development, and I've been here since June of 2013. The reason I became involved with the issue that we're facing with the Baldwin County sewer system is because they supply our sewage in Foley, where we live in Foley. We are actually part of Foley, but we're not able to get Foley sewage service because we were annexed into Foley, and the distance between the Foley line and our line is too great for that to happen. Our sewage system was owned by a gentleman by the name of Bass for many years, I'm told, and he supplied services here and had an agreement with the citizens of Glen Lakes that went back to 1991. At a point in time, he sold the company to a gentleman by the name of Clarence Burke. Mr. Burke's the principal in Baldwin County sewer system, which I think I just refer to as BCCS from now on, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
We moved in here in 2013, as I said, and signed a contract with Baldwin County Sewer System that we were presented, and we signed it because if you didn't sign it, you couldn't get sewage service, and that would have made it impossible for us to occupy the home that we purchased. So we signed it like everybody else signed it. Actually, they introduced this contract to new residents starting in 2011. What none of us realized was the fact that this contract that Baldwin County Sewer System made us sign under threat of not providing any sewage service at all said that it replaced any and all previous sewer agreements. And of course, none of us knew that there was any other sewer agreement. We had no idea that this was going to become a factor as time went on. But in fact, it has become a big factor. So a few years ago, after the sewage contract was purchased by Baldwin County Sewer from Mr. Bass, Mr. Burke, who owns BCCS, made a gentleman's agreement with the people here in Glen Lakes that he would honor the 1991 agreement, and gave the sewer committee that discussed this with him, who are residents of our community, a handshake saying that he would work out everything in writing and present it to us, but he agreed to it, that the 1991 agreement was okay with him. What I'm told is that he never produced such an agreement and became evasive and decided actually to not honor that agreement. So that began our issues with Baldwin County Sewer System.
And when you say us, you were on the Homeowners Association board at the time?
I was on the Homeowners Association board after I moved here in 2013, yes.
Okay.
But this even superseded my time here. I'm going back to a time prior to my moving in where this began to take shape. So what happened then was that in 2017, I believe it was, Mr. Burke and BCCS raised the rate in Glen Lakes to all the 650 homes that he services here from $32.50 a month, which was the rate that we had in effect that was part of our 1991 agreement. He raised it from $32.50 to $54.50 a month. And that was a 70% increase in 2017 when the national rate of inflation was only 2.1%. So naturally, this caught the attention of all of our homeowners, and we decided that the only course of action that we had was to employ an attorney and challenge Mr. Burke's right to raise these rates in the fashion that he did. And we engaged a company to sue BCCS to enforce our 1991 sewer agreement that they had purchased from Mr. Bass and agreed to in principle. And when we presented the lawsuit to the court system, we were placed in a court that was administered by Judge Joseph Norton. And after listening to our argument about our 1991 agreement and Mr. Bass's sale of that agreement to Mr. Burke, the judge decided that our contract was ambiguous and was invalid. And of course, we as homeowners disagreed with that. And we took our case to the Alabama Supreme Court. The Alabama Supreme Court reviewed it and decided that it was an ambiguously worded contract, but it was in fact valid. And they passed that judgment on through. That was approximately 2 years ago. And
so everybody get the gist?
Sure should. And if you read the article in Lanyap and you follow this, you'll find out a lot more about it. We are just now rebounding off of the bridge toll. And the one thing we should learn from the bridge toll was that public participation is what made the difference. 54,000 people came together and forced the politicians to do their job. That is what's going to need to happen here with the sewer regulation. We're going to need the general public to get behind this, call your county commissioners, and start leaning on them. And we're going to be working on this for months to come. It's already been presented to the county commission, and the first time it was presented, Mr. Dayton was told that he doubted that could happen in Baldwin County. Realize that Baldwin County is the only county in the state that does not have the sewer rates regulated.
So let's talk about that for a second. So it's my position that the number one economic and environmental time bomb ticking on the table right now is private sewer in Baldwin County.
Correct.
Okay. Now in Alabama, we do have a mechanism for managing or regulating utilities, such as Alabama Power Company. If coal goes up, they have to go to the Public Service Commission and they say coal went up. We got to go up 5% on our rates. That's how regulation works. There's no such mechanism at all related to Baldwin County Sewer Service. And I do want to throw this in here. I want to say that Judge Norton has never been anything but a by the book kind of guy when I've been in his courtroom. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So Raines.
Well, I got a couple of problems with this. And the first is there are a few basic certainties in this life. And one of them is that there's only two great things that have come out of Alabama, and one of them is Bear Bryant, and the other one's me. And the second is handshake agreements have absolutely no place in any sort of municipal service, contract, anywhere. You as an attorney should be able to tell everybody that handshake agreements are nothing, especially in this day and age. I've read a lot more about the Baldwin County Sewer Service in the last 3 days than I have read about just about anything else. And I'm here to tell you that I read the Alabama Supreme Court of Appeals ruling on it. And they ruled that the majority of their decision was based on standing, which Harry, you as an attorney could probably do a better Cliff's Notes version of explaining than I could. But also on the fact that there was vague and ambiguous language used in the original contract that he refers to in 1991. What they focused on was the fact that the language used was a competitive rate. All right. And that was authored. It was originally meant to say that we will have a market influenced rate that's variable at times and that we have the authority to raise it. However, in the agreement, it says competitive. And the Court of Appeals ruled that competitive is not the proper language to be able to enforce whether or not a rate hike is justified, the amount of the rate hike, I should add. Anytime a private utility company enters into a contract with a user, be it a person or a homeowners association or municipality, they have to say, all right, according to the regulations set forth by the State Utilities Commission or whatever governing body, we have to abide by certain rate things. But this gentleman is the gentleman that was just addressed in this in the recording. He's referencing a contract where they said that we're just going to have a competitive rate, and the Alabama Court of Appeals said that that's not enough specifics to rule on a lawsuit as to whether or not that rate hike was too high. So, in a way, my own legal interpretation of that is that the lawsuit is moot, but the ability for the homeowners to seek some sort of agreement or a basic settlement with this utility company is they just have to go about it in a different way. And honestly, I have to side with Thomas Jefferson here and say, you enter into a laissez-faire economy and a hands-off, deregulated sort of economy, you've got to kind of pay what the market will bear. And if the local utility company says, hey, we're raising our rate 70%, well, guess what, bud? That's what you got to pay.
So I'll speak to the standing issue, or at least what I know about it. To cure the standing issue, they filed a completely separate lawsuit and wanted to have all of the members or all of the customers of Baldwin County Sewer Service certified as a class. And it's my understanding that was denied. And so
Correct.
Where we are at this point is they have filed a notice of appeal that they intend to appeal that decision. And so that's where that case is in particular. But they've addressed the standing issue as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes back to that vague and ambiguous language in the competitive pricing. It's the court has ruled that that's not enough to enforce a contract as far as them being in breach because they raised the rates too much.
Well, and
so I really don't think that they have any recourse on that issue.
Well, potentially, there are a lot of contracts that what we call blue line, and a court can go in there and say, this portion of the contract's unenforceable, and the rest of it, stands as written. What would have made sense was we will be competitive with the rates of Riviera Utilities, Gulf Shores Utilities, Orange Beach Utility. I mean, and then you would have had something finite to tag that to. But hindsight's 2020, and they didn't put it in their original contract in 91.
And as it stands now, the sewer system in Baldwin County is fragmented from one end of the county to the other. No one knows what the other person's doing. There's no general lines, and there's no plan. If one of these individuals decided to quit, just shut the doors. That's why we need some sort of deregulation, and we need the county commission to get behind this.
Regulation, not deregulation.
Regulation. Sorry.
I'm not one that's for a lot of government. I'm not one for enforcing more regulation. A tactic that could be easily used by a competent, and I'll double underline that, a competent county commission would be to pursue the assembly of a municipal utility district that could be an auxiliary sewer service should that one go belly up. A redundancy in service would be needed where the county would be able to take over that service. The Environmental Protection Agency has several federal oversight laws that govern what happens when a utility folds. And part of that comes under Clean Water Act. If you don't have a municipal utility district in place to take over when a private utility fails, the federal government will come in and take over the utility so there's no interruption in service. Simply because if there wasn't a regulation to that effect, there could be massive environmental damage wherever that takes place. So it's a common sense redundancy, but we are talking about a very specific issue. So maybe not everybody's aware of that. But if a competent county commission would have a draft of a municipal services agreement in order to take over for a utility system under EPA oversight that folds. So to speak to that particular issue, yes, there should be something in place, but a utility district just going out of business is not going to stop sewer service from being handled in that county. An example of that is Johnson Utilities in Jackson County, Mississippi, which is just 2 counties over from where you're at. Johnson County Utilities went out of business in the late 1990s, and the Jackson County had to have in place a municipal utility district ready to take that up. So there was never an interruption of service. Johnson Utilities just went out of business. And it's not like you flush your toilet and it didn't go anywhere. You know, the service continued and litigation happened, but the service was never interrupted and there was no significant environmental impact there. So as far as that argument goes, I think that basically covers it. However, the fact that you have a private utility company operating without any form of regulation in a county is a bit disturbing. But no, I won't even butt that. I'll just leave that as it is.
So, Raines, very important question. Greatest TV series of all times. Don't you disappoint me. I'll drive to Texas and whip your... Come on.
You're asking me what the greatest TV series of all time is? It is MASH. Without fail, it's MASH.
Deadwood. How could you not say Deadwood?
Because MASH is a far superior show. I love everything about Deadwood, but dear God, MASH was the greatest TV series of all time, for crying out loud. If you understand MASH, you can understand life.
Well, there you go.
I believe I made that my high school yearbook quote.
Well, and so I just, all these people moving to Baldwin County, it's Deadwood. We don't have the infrastructure to support all these people moving here. And I'm not saying that that all those characters are involved, of course, but you know where I'm coming from.
I understand that, but in researching this issue, one of the things I found is that you have a number of private utility districts in Baldwin County, Foley, Robertsdale. There are a few other very small ones that basically service subdivisions, like this gentleman was talking about, the Grand Lakes or Great Lakes Homeowners Association. It was surrounded, it's built around a golf course. There's small private utility companies that operate all around there. However, Baldwin County Sewer Service is the only one in the state that is not under the oversight of the county commission.
Makes you wonder how that happened.
So let's talk about the proposed legislation. Are you familiar with that, Paul?
No.
So Shelby County and the city of Chelsea went to the Alabama legislature, I think late in the session, with a plan for them to regulate sewer up there. I think there's some rates out of control, and I really should be more informed before bringing this up. But I think that's the gist of it. And I know that that the Glen Lakes folks have been in talks with Representative McMillan about doing something similar down here, or at least talking about it.
Go ahead.
That's a good thing. Any kind of dialogue is a good thing between municipalities or just more importantly, concerned citizens. This gentleman you had on earlier in the recording, I can tell you right now that man spends a good bit of his waking hours either looking at social media or at news sites online that help keep him informed on the issues that are not just affecting his particular problem, but how they're being influenced throughout the entire state. And that's something, or in the nation for that matter, that's something that as a media source, we should definitely get behind and say, you know, if you're one of these people that really want to know, get out there and look for it. Get out there and research it, track it down, read it while you're on the toilet on your phone, you know, but do something to figure out how other people are doing it and how other people are managing it in the country. Not how politicians are doing it, not how lawyers are doing it, but how you're doing it as a homeowner, how you're doing it as a property owner, how you're doing it just as a citizen or just as a person. Figure out how you're doing it. Look and see what solutions are coming up in other parts of the world. And you'll often find at least a guiding direction for you to go there. And I said that for the space. I said that for the sake of us not having dead air. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Go for it, Paul.
Well, the sewer is one of the things that we're going to be talking about. Just a little bit more on the ripreport.com. Those of you that want to read, the Rip Report is nonprofit, and we plan on staying nonprofit. But if you want to read some of past articles, you can go on the ripreport.com and go all the way back to 2016, and that will cover a tremendous amount of topics. Some of the new topics that we may be covering, of course, is going to be the 2020 election. We're looking at a situation where city councilmen are using their office for personal gain, also a particular mayor. And those subjects have come up. And lately, as of just a few days ago, RSA down at Point Clear was making an application to change the zoning for a small condo project. And thank goodness the planning people in Fairhope and the county all agree that this is not the location for a condominium. It's only 12 units. So then that RSA comes back in and takes out all the fuel tanks, shuts down the gas station. And now everyone up on that end is going to have to drive all the way down to Fairhope to get any gas. And this type of intimidation is the type of thing that we saw with the bridge. And this is the type of thing that you have to face straight on. RSA is a big player. They're trying to force everybody to do whatever they want to do. And they're coming here telling the residents and the people that live in that area that they're going to do this, whether they like it or not. They took out the fuel tanks before this case was heard, which is going to be at the Planning and Zoning County meeting this Thursday. So, you know, those are the type of things that we will be covering, as well as many other subjects.
Well,
Your state.
So I just wanted to cover a few of the topics that I'm demanding that Paul participate in. The first one is the several issues with the sheriffs here in Alabama. And I will actually be defending the Beach House Sheriff, Todd Entrican. He is right. It is not his fault. The law absolutely said that he could take that money. The next one is a little bit of a puff piece. We're going to have, I think Gary Finch has agreed to take us out to the site if we can get permission from the state of Alabama. There's an underwater forest that was, and to make my point, I believe it was Hurricane Ivan uncovered a 50,000-year-old cypress forest in 60 feet of water off the coast here in Alabama. Now, I think it was Ben Raines.
Correct.
Did a nice little video on it. You should go over and check it out on YouTube. Alabama's underwater forest. The last word I got on it was the state was going to protect it or pass some law saying it was a protected heritage site, and therefore you couldn't take any, don't want people out there pulling up 50,000-year-old logs to make rocking chairs out of them. So anyway, as far as I know, I've called the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I've called Dauphin Island Sea Lab. Nobody has any answers, and we're going to get to the bottom of that. Another one that Finch is going to be involved in is the postmortem on the Boy Scouts a few years ago. Paul and I and he got together, and I believe, did Lanyap write an article? Is that who wrote that article?
I believe they did. Yes.
And so now we know the situation with them, and then of course a continuing theme is issues in our legal system, and of course I'm not talking to my colleagues who are honest players or any of the judges who are honest players, but we're going to give a platform to people to come here and talk about things that inexplicably befell them, given the facts in our legal system.
Another one too is boards that are governing the Boy Scouts, boards that are supposed to be overlooking things and paying attention. And the failure of boards in Baldwin County is atrocious. A lot of these board members show up just for bragging rights, have no idea what's going on, and it's apparent by the way that their organizations run. Boy Scouts are a very good suggestion as to one to look at.
So I have hey, one sec, Rains. One thing that we're going to figure out, and we haven't done that yet because we just formed an LLC last week, but we're going to try to figure out a way for people to support the channel if they're interested in hearing some more of this kind of stuff. I don't know if we're going to do some kind of Patreon type program, or if we're going to sell a T-shirt for $100. I just don't know. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to skin that cat, but certainly want you to go to our YouTube page and leave a comment and like if you're interested in us going forward with this project, which I'm sure we will, regardless of your feedback. But it sure be nice to know that people are listening and cared about this type of thing.
Absolutely. Give us, Harry's going to take care of some social media for us. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe on Facebook, on YouTube, when he develops the Twitter handle and the Instagram handle that this show will have in the very foreseeable future. Please make sure to get out there and give that a look, give that a like, leave a comment. Let us listening. We're not out here to make money. If I had to do a financial forecast as to how much money this podcast is going to generate, I would say we could probably pay his legal defense fund for about 6 minutes, and maybe buy a T-shirt at the Buc-ee's over there in Robertsdale. Don't mess with Texas T-shirt. That'd probably be great. But please, by all means, let people know about it. That's the whole point of this thing. What we saw with the toll affair, that's what I'll coin it as, there was national attention brought to this affair through social media, through a grassroots social media campaign. We're out here wanting to fight this good fight with you, and we can't do it if we can't hear you. So please, by all means, let us know. Your voice counts. 54,000 people. Let Montgomery know that you don't want this toll authority. I guarantee you 54,000 would let people know that Baldwin County needs some help. And I'll leave it at that.
One other thing I'd like to add is that if you want to contribute to the show or information to us and you want to remain anonymous, we'll be more than happy to respect that, because we understand that some people need to use anonymous to get us that information. So please be assured that we're not going to go out and broadcast your name or any allegations that you may make without some facts.
And don't send us an email asking me a pointed legal question. That's not what this is all about.
Correct. And I might make a point of that too. I can offer you suggestions. I can guide you in certain directions, but I cannot give you any legal advice either, as I am not an attorney.
Well, I'm not an attorney either, but I'm the best bartender in the north part of Houston. So I'm here to tell you that direct all your legal questions to me. By God, I've got the best bar stool legal advice you've ever heard in your life. So if you got any legal questions, just send them to rains.russian@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction.
Good. You're out of state too.
Yeah. And our email address is backstorypc@gmail.com.
backstorypc@gmail.com. That is the email address. You send us anything you've got, you send it to that, and we'll address it, guaranteed.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've reached a good place to wrap this thing up. I certainly appreciate everybody participating.
Number one, and the ball's rolling.
There you go. And I do have something for you, Rains. You're going to have to go back and watch the video because obviously you're not here.
Well, no, I'm not in Lower Alabama. Thank goodness.
It's a big bottle of beer, and I'll tell you what it says after the broadcast. Anyway, you definitely win the award this go round. And I just want to say thanks for participating, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
You'll be hearing from us again.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thank you much.
All right, we'll be around.
See you guys later.